Oz, you're back.
I am back. Sorry about that.
It's okay. We can start the meeting when you're ready.
All right. So welcome, everyone. We'd like to call the meeting of the Science Subcommittee to order. Maria, could you call the roll?
Sure. Oz Stewart.
Here.
Deborah Deese. Anne-Marie Dulege.
Here.
Judy Gasson. Larry Goldstein.
Here.
David Higgins.
Here.
Steve Julesgaard.
Here.
Shlomo Malmed.
Here.
Art Torres.
Here.
Jonathan Thomas.
Here.
Christina Vori.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. I assume that there is going to be a presentation. Who will be taking care of that?
It's Gil.
Okay. Gil, welcome.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everybody. I'm going to share my screen, and Oz, I don't know if you're going to be able to see this through your phone,
Yes,
but
I can.
Okay, great. It's also, I think, available on the agenda for anybody who otherwise can't. So today, what I'm going to do is present an overview of the GWG recruitment and nomination process. And I'm just going to begin with a brief background about the grants working group itself. The GWG is responsible, as you know, by statute for evaluating the scientific merit of all applications that are submitted to CIRM, and also with providing funding recommendations that come to the ICOC. The group is composed of 15 scientific members who are not from California, and that's based on Prop 14 and Prop 71, 7 patient advocate members of the board, and the chair of the ICOC, who sits in an ex officio capacity on the working group. But of course, the GWG has to evaluate proposals for scientific merit across all of our pillars, so from discovery, translation, clinical, education, and infrastructure. And so as you can imagine, the breadth of expertise that's required is going to be necessarily very large. And so in order to have available that broad expertise and to assemble grants working group panels for all of our different funding opportunities, CIRM has maintained, and we intend to grow, a large pool of experts on the order of currently about 250 to 300 members, and we may need more. Now, since a panel cannot have more than 15 scientific members, we draw the most relevant experts from that pool in order to compose a group that best matches the expertise needs of the portfolio of proposals that were submitted for a given cycle. And so it's important to note that we have multiple cycles running in parallel, and therefore multiple panels that need to be assembled at any given time. We also need to account for the availability of members, any possible conflicts of interest, and the overall workload that they're going to get. And so just as an example of how we choose experts, so for our clinical panel, for instance, we typically include reviewers with expertise in regulatory affairs, manufacturing, product development, and then relevant clinical disease expertise. And we also ensure that we have multiple experts that can contribute to a given topic or specialty. And so in assembling those grants working group panels, we want to ensure that we have enough to draw from in that large pool that can address the needs of a particular cycle and provide those varied perspectives. So we're looking essentially for gaps in that pool, which is an ongoing process for us. And so in terms of identifying those gaps, we look for in the panel members that can fulfill the diversity in terms of background and experience for our panels, as well as provide multiple scientific perspectives, such as experience for the relevant stage of therapy development, disease indication, therapeutic approach, maybe the specific activities that are proposed and or technologies that are utilized. As in some cases, we have a large number of proposals within a specific area, ensuring that we have several available experts in that area is also important in order for us to cover and manage workload. And so this diagram presents an overview of the proposed grants working group recruitment process, which I will go over in more detail in subsequent slides. So I'm going to go through each of these kind of four major elements that are shown. But briefly, when we identify a need or a gap in expertise, we must first determine who can fill those expertise needs. And so we can go about this in a variety of ways that I will discuss, including getting recommendations from experts or partners of ours. So once we identify such individuals with relevant expertise, an assessment is made of their level of commitment to CIRM. The relevant in expertise, we must first determine who can fill those expertise needs. So Maria, I'm getting kind of like a repeat of what I just said. I don't know what's going on with audio.
I think it's just stopped. I don't hear it again.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, okay. So then we conduct an assessment, and an important part of this assessment is participation in the review process itself as a specialist reviewer that does not vote or score, but contributes to the discussion and evaluation of the proposals. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. Now, individuals that show commitment to CIRM and have demonstrated knowledge and proficiency may then be nominated for membership into the GWG. And so nominees are first proposed to the CIRM leadership team to determine if they agree that the nominees will serve the needs of CIRM and will address our needs and gaps. And then once we have agreement from the CIRM president, those nominations are brought to the ICOC for final approval. And then just as a note, GWG members are appointed to an initial 6-year term, and then subsequent appointments are either for 2, 4, or 6 years in thirds as described in Prop 14. And then additional terms after that are 6 years each. All right, so let me go into a little more detail on each of these elements. So first, how we go about identifying experts and getting recommendations. We may identify recognized experts in the field of interest through scientific literature, so searching for experts who have published in a particular area, their participation in relevant scientific meetings, and membership in scientific societies or organizations. And what we look for is an indication that the scientist is a leader and well-versed in the field by, say, the number and nature of the publications that they have, invitations to speak and represent a topic of interest at a relevant meeting, and the role they might have within the scientific organization. Now, in addition to that, we also solicit recommendations from our current grants working group members, as well as our CIRM scientific team. And as you might imagine, CIRM participates in many scientific meetings outside of review. We hold workshops, conferences. We also assemble advisory panels, such as the clinical advisory groups for oversight of our clinical grants. And so it exposes us to a variety of experts in that way, from which we can also garner recommendations. We also take recommendations from applicants or grantees, and certainly invite ICOC members to contribute recommendations whenever they have them. And then lastly, we're also exploring the possibility of partnerships with scientific organizations and societies who can share their knowledge of experts or recommend their members to increase our overall reach. other funders and organizations are often looking for experts themselves, and so sharing in this effort would certainly be mutually beneficial. And so we're actually quite excited about this idea, as it could help us identify and get insights on experts who might not otherwise be available to us or even know about us. And we've begun discussions with 2 different organizations and plans for talking with others who have expressed interest in partnering with us in this capacity. So once we identify a potential expert, how is it that we go about assessing them for possible GWG nomination? So as mentioned, we look at elements such as their publication record, invitations to speak at scientific meetings, but in addition, their academic, company, or government position that in some way demonstrates leadership and experience in the field. We will also look at any awards and honors that highlight their scientific accomplishments or recommendations that come to us from other funding agencies or scientific societies. Now, it's important to note that not all experts can be assessed by the same criteria. So for example, an academic scientist could be assessed through their publication record and academic achievements. However, experts with, say, company or government backgrounds wouldn't necessarily have an extensive publication record, and therefore we look for other indicators of their knowledge and experience. So such as having taken therapeutic products to market, successfully submitted INDs or led clinical trials, having developed broadly used manufacturing protocols, or maybe reviewed submissions for the FDA if they worked for the FDA, and so on. We also look to see if an expert has experience with grant or other similar reviews for, say, NIH, Department of Defense, nonprofit foundations, or other similar organizations. And to us, this is an indicator that an expert will be relatively familiar with the grant-making process and peer review, and may also be an indicator of their willingness to contribute to the scientific review in general. And as mentioned before, a critical part of assessing an expert reviewer for possible nomination is to first invite their participation as a non-voting, non-scoring specialist reviewer for CIRM. And so this allows us to assess their follow-through and understanding of the review process, including the review of assigned applications, the completion of critiques, and full participation in grants working group meetings. We also look to see if the expert demonstrates knowledge, thoughtfulness, and thoroughness when evaluating and discussing the proposals at these meetings. When we believe that we have a candidate or candidates that have been assessed as described and that should be nominated for GWG membership, we propose having them vetted by the CIRM leadership team. Now, the CIRM leadership team has a clear understanding of CIRM's needs, and the team, which includes Dr. Milan and leaders of our varied departments, is present at GWG reviews to hear the deliberations and be witness to the competency of our reviewers. And as such, they're well poised to contribute and vet nominations to GWG. The CIRM review team will present their background, qualifications, overall performance of the expert reviewer to the leadership team to confirm their agreement on nominating these individuals. And with the leadership team's advice, the final list of nominees would then be determined by Dr. Milan and myself. All right, and lastly, once we have a vetted list of nominees, we will bring those names to the ICOC for final approval. And in the past, we have provided a biography of each nominee that includes a description of their expertise, their training, affiliations, honors and accomplishments, and so on. And of course, we will continue to do so. But in addition, just to provide more context, we can also provide information on specific expertise gaps or needs that the nominee fulfills, how the nominee was identified, and their history of service to CIRM. And we can also bring along with that a running total of our experts in our pool, as well as the active GWG members. So that concludes the presentation. Oz.
Thank you, Gil. That was great. And just let me say that I have been privileged to participate in the grants working group meetings now for several years. And I have to say that I've been nothing but impressed with the way that you and the rest of the CIRM team have put together the review panels. It's a group of experts that were both obviously expert in their field, extremely thoughtful, but broad in their considerations, and pay very close attention to whatever it is that CIRM deems the most important aspects of review, which changes based on the review. So just to say, I really want to call out and thank you and the team for all the work that you've done. So let's open up the discussion to the subcommittee members. Maria, I trust that you can see hands raised.
Yes, so whoever would like to go. I see Dr. Melmed.
Maz, a quick technical question. The six-year term, was that determined by the ballot, or is it determined by CIRM?
No, it's determined. It's under the rules of Prop 71 and Prop 14. Each initial term is for 6 years.
Okay, so it is ballot determined.
Yes.
Other questions or comments from the board?
No, just a comment to say that I wanted to thank Gil and the CIRM for this presentation. It's extremely clear. It makes a lot of sense. I've no comment. It's just the right thing to do. But.
Maria, if I could add here, I just want to echo what Oz said, which is the grant analysis is really the sort of the meat and potatoes of the whole process. And we have been very fortunate since inception to have an extraordinary group of experts who've been able to analyze these grants in highly professional manners and are very dedicated. I've sat in all of these grant meetings last almost 10 years now and continue to marvel at the amount of time and effort that is put into each of the grant application reviews by all the members of the GWG. So I think we're very fortunate to have them to help us make the right decisions. And I think Gil and his team do a first-rate job in vetting the potential membership of the GWG and recommending to the board which members would best suit us and help us. So I want to just second what Oz said. It's been a terrific aspect of the entire CIRM experience.
Thank you.
Christina? Oh, sorry, Christina has a question.
Yeah, just a very quick question about the process. I understand that we will be voting, which I assume approving this process in the full board meeting. I was just curious why that is. Is there a change here? How is this sort of an approval matter, and how was this handled in the past? It seems to me that the process has been in place successfully so for quite some time.
Yeah, go ahead, Maria.
Yeah, I wanted to respond on behalf of the team. Just that was going to be my comment. I wanted to first, in response to that, just to kind of review why we brought this to today. I wanted to thank the board. In fact, actually, it was Dr. Melmed who had asked, what the process was to ensure that we really had the best reviewers. I think that the GWG and the review team, as JT had indicated, have really has a very solid reputation for really carrying out a robust and rigorous review. But so that was the reason for today. There are changes and refinements to this, Christina, that are different than in the past. In addition to some of the information regarding the specialist, the GWG's background, there's all these other steps now that we've formalized in terms of how these get brought to the board. And additionally, we're in conversations with leadership at the National Academies and at the ISSCR, who are very excited to be able to work with us in identifying, candidate reviewers. So in this way, we'll also be able to increase the robustness of the pool from which the review team will be able to draw from. So we believe that this is actually building on what was already in place. But I wanted to also say, I wanted to thank the entire leadership team who helped Gil to come, together, we all came up with the proposal that you see today as refinements to the previous process that builds on success and builds on a solid record. But we believe this will make it scalable for the demand that's going to be on us, launching this next proposition and its programs.
Great, thank you. I know it's, I think, very thoughtful, very impressive presentation and process. Congratulations to the team of putting it together. And I suggest you trademark it and sell it to National Institutes of Health. They have a lot to improve in their process.
Thank you so much.
Other comments or questions from members of the committee?
There aren't any.
Yeah.
Oh, Steve. go
Yeah,
ahead.
no, I had just one quick question, just out of curiosity. What percentage of the GWG pool, the overall pool, come from outside of the US?
That's a great question. I would say it's under 20%, maybe 10 to 15% might come out outside of the US.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sure.
Other questions or comments? If not,
I think Shlomo has another question. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
well, first
yeah,
of all,
I-
I certainly echo the kudos to the staff for presenting a very, very comprehensive and compelling set of statements. Thank you. Just a curiosity question for us in California. How many of the people who you actually invite to join a group actually decline? And why do they decline?
Right. So, I don't have a specific number in terms of the percentage, but we definitely get many who decline, and it's mostly because they already feel overcommitted to many other things that they have on their plate. So the vast majority, 99% express an interest in contributing to CIRM in some way, but those that decline typically say, I just don't have enough time really to participate. And that's usually the reason.
and if I could maybe just add to that, I mean, I think this is a reflection of the fact that Gil is always asking people who are the very best, who obviously have a ton of other commitments and obligations and get invited to review for all kinds of different organizations. So, again, it's just been super to see the way this review group actually works. Thank you.
Larry, you had a question?
Yes, I do. Thank you. First of all, I just do want to agree that this is a terrific process you guys have outlined, and I think it'll generally work well. I want to raise a question, though. Have you given any thought as to trying to balance career stage in each of those panels? My experience from having served on a lot of these panels over the years is I think they work best when there's a good blend of more senior investigators and some investigators that are, say, immediately post-tenure. You get a somewhat different perspective from each group.
Yes, we have certainly thought about that, and we do want to diversify, from different points of view. So including the seniority, I think that becomes important as well. So yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Oz, I do not see any other questions.
Okay, then Maria, could you inform us of what the appropriate course of action is? Are we at this stage recommending this for consideration to the board or anything other?
It was agendized as just a discussion item. So comments will be taken in, and then the final presentation will be made at the board. But we should do public comment before we end the meeting.
Excellent. So if there are no further comments from members of the committee, are there any public comments?
Do not see any.
Okay, so I think then that concludes the business of the Science Subcommittee for today. Thank you very much to everyone for making time for this meeting, and we'll look forward to the presentation at the next board meeting.
Thank you so much, everyone. We'll see you Tuesday.
Thank you.
Thank you.